All right, great. It's 4 o'clock now, so we can now start our class today. Welcome, everybody. I first just want to take this time to welcome you all to the class. My name is Nathan, and I'll be your instructor today. Our class, what we're going to be going over is advanced motion keyframing. So all of you should have the ProShow Producer program open if you want to be able to follow along with me. So that's ProShow Producer, not ProShow Gold. And basically, advanced motion keyframing is only going to be for Producer. So the reason you have Producer is to do cooler, more advanced effects. So you've come to the right place if that's what you're going after. While you're in this class, I'm assuming that most of you have a good understanding of the basic use of the software. So hopefully you've taken the basics keyframing course. If not, don't worry about it. I'll be sure to explain everything in full detail, and after the class is finished, we'll actually have half an hour to discuss any other questions. You know, if something I didn't explain correctly, or if you just got lost somewhere along the way, we'll be happy to get you to the point where you need to be before you leave the class. So just understand, we'll go through everything. If you have any questions after that, we'll take care of that at that time. So basically, this class is going to cover 2 effects, and I know some of you are like, 2 effects, that's nothing, but just understand we're going to go through in detail everything that you have at your disposal in the software. And we're going to be mainly covering motion keyframing, but we're also going to be combining other aspects of the software. We're going to be going into a little bit of gradient mask in this first example, or the second example, I'm sorry. We'll do some kind of flipping and rotation type effects. We're going to do some cool little flash effects to give you, I don't know if any of you guys are actually photographers, to give it that cool little photo flash look. So we'll go over that. And in addition, we'll also talk about just how to line up keyframes. Because when using keyframes, let me just give you guys a basic overview of just keyframes for those who aren't familiar. So we'll just create a quick blank slide. So I'm just going to start by just showing you a basic just keyframe. And some of you I know will already know how to do this, so this is just for those who have no idea. So I'm just going to have an image. Doesn't matter. I'm going to go to Effects and Motion Effects. So the theory behind a keyframe is basically how it starts and then how it ends. So in Producer, you actually have the ability to create what are called keyframes, or waypoints is another way you can describe it, I guess. So you can basically tell the slide, okay, I want this to happen between point A and point B. And to become more advanced, you can also tell it what to do at point B to C, and then C to D, and you can go all the way till your heart is content. Okay, so you can have as many waypoints as you want. So the cool thing about this feature is you can break up a slide motion into different waypoints. So as you can see, right here is my keyframe bar, and so I can do things like between point 1 and 2, tell it go left to right, and then click between 2 and 3 and tell it to go top to bottom, and then between 3 and 4 I can have it go bottom to left. So if I preview that for you, you'll see we can have like little crazy types of effects, like you can tell your picture to do this, then this, then this. Okay, so this class is going to cover that, obviously, but also we're going to combine other aspects of the software to give you some cool little effects that you can apply to your shows. And once again, I hope you guys don't feel that these effects are just limited to what they are. This class is designed to get you to understand the tools on how to create the effects so you can use your own creativity and originality to push the envelope and come out with something new that nobody's ever seen before. So the main 2 effects we're going to go over today are going to be called the flashy photos, and this example is going to combine our keyframe motion effects techniques, and then we're also going to apply some sound to really to complete the slide's effect. So I've already done it, so let's go ahead and just take a look at what we're going to learn today. So we're on an internet connection, so when we play it for you, it may not look, it may be a little laggy or whatnot. So I don't know if you all could see that or hear it, but I'll just go ahead and scrub through it so it'll be a little bit slower. So, okay, let me click on it. All right, so basically what we're going to learn is how to have a multiple layer slide, and we're going to have like a cool little flash effect like you're taking a photo, and then it'll do it again and again. So this is a cool effect, but once again it's almost like you're taking Polaroids out of your camera, and we're going to have like a little sound, so it'll sound like somebody's taking a picture, like, you know, and you'll have this type of effect. Okay? The second effect we're going to go over is called the spin doctor effect, and this guy here. Let me go ahead and just preview it for you. And as you can see, they come into the frame and they kind of do a little spinaroo, and that's about it. So with these two effects, they're using advanced motion keyframing. So let's go ahead and get started with today's lesson. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut these out so we can start over. Okay, the images I'm going to be using today are come with your built-in content that you could have downloaded when you joined the class. If you didn't do that, don't worry about it. Don't feel that you have to use the same images I am. These are primarily just for examples, so you can even follow along with pictures that you have stored on your personal machine. But if you want it to be just like you see it on my screen, it'll be in that toolkit that you downloaded from our website. And we have an images and miscellaneous folder, so I'm going to be working out of the images folder. Okay? So to get started, we're going to go ahead and start by using the texture ice pattern.jpg, which is this guy down here, this one. So we're going to drag and drop it into our slide to create a slide. And take note that whenever you create a slide, it's going to, be your default setting for how long it's going to be on the screen for. For this example, we're going to want a 7-second slide with a 0-second transition. You can have it 5 seconds and give it a 2-second transition if you like, but I'm just going to use the 7 and 0. Okay? So after that's set, I'm going to go ahead and double-click my slide, and I'm going to go into my slide options screen here. And what we're going to want to do is go ahead and add a layer. So at the bottom left, you're going to be under Motion Effects, and we're going to, well, let's first adjust this. It's not taking up the whole screen. So I'm going to come into here under Layers, and then I'm going to go to Layer Settings, and under Scaling, I'm going to make sure it's going to fill the frame, just so my background covers the entire area. You don't have to, but I like it so whenever I have a background, I want to make sure it's going to cover the entire viewing area. Okay? Then I'm going to come back over here to Effects, and under Motion Effects, you'll notice that you'll have a layer box down here. We're going to want to add another layer to this background, so we're going to hit the plus sign and select Add Image or Video. It's defaulting to my images folder that I'm going to be using, and you can actually view them as thumbnails. So I'm going to go ahead and grab the Nature 5, which is going to be this leaf right here. So we're going to add that as a layer. So right now, you should have Nature 5 as your top layer and Texture Ice Pattern as your bottom layer. Okay? So we want to be under the Layers tab, I'm sorry. And we're going to be under the Layers Settings, right underneath Layers. And what we're going to want to start with is to change the zoom of this layer to 60%. So make sure you have the leaf. We don't want to make the background 60%. We want to make sure that this leaf image is going to be 60%. You can type in the value here or use your zoom slider. Now we're going to go ahead and click on the Editing button, which is also under Layers. And we're going to select the Vignette option. So it's just so you all know, it's Vignette. It's not Vignette, which I thought it was at first. So it's Vignette. You click on this guy right here, and it's going to open your Vignette option. We're going to want to change the shape. Well, mine's set to rounded rectangle already. So if it's not set, you can click the drop down, make sure it's selected. We're also going to want to change the type to solid color. All right? And then you can adjust the vignette size if you like. I'm just going to leave it at 10 for now. And I'm also going to check the corners, fill corners box. I'm also going to check the border solid borders box. And I'm going to come down here and I'm going to change the color of my vignette to white. So to change the color, simply click the set button, and then you'll see like the colors of the rainbow. But as you all know, white is a part of every color, so in the little hue triangle here, just go ahead and click it and drag it to the white area and hit set color. And it may be a little hard for you all to see this on your end, so let me get out my little pen here. And why we're doing this is so we can give it this nice, really sharp, wow, this nice little sharp corner right here. So it actually looks like it's a picture like printed on photo paper. So it'll really help us with the effect we're going with. Okay, so let me just get rid of that drawing for you. Okay, cool. Okay, so now that we have our layer looking how we want it to, we're now going to go ahead and click on our effects and then motion effects tab. So we have our layer how we want it to, and now we're going to go ahead and apply the motion to give it that effect that we saw earlier. So let's just pause here. So under motion effects is where you have access to your keyframes. So once again, the basic understanding of a keyframe is what happens between point A to point B. And with keyframes, you can have as many as you like. So in essence, you can tell it to do pretty much whatever you're wanting it to do at any time of your slide. So for this example, we're going to start by adding another keyframe. So you can hit this plus sign under keyframes. It's the second icon down. And that'll go ahead and make another keyframe for us. So now, as you can see, instead of just 1 to 2, we have a 1 to 2, and then we'll also have a 2 to 3. Okay? So what we're going to want to do is in the starting position, we're going to want to give the layer some rotation. So a little rotation like so. And we're also going to want to drag the layer off of the slide in the direction that we're going to want it to come into the frame for. So it doesn't really matter what you do here as far as what direction you want it to come in. Just for this example's sake, we're just going to have it kind of fly in from the top left somewhere. So I'm just going to drag it off there. Okay? In the keyframe 2 position, so right now we're on 1 to 2, so the left-hand box is going to be 1, the second box is going to be 2. If I were to click between 2 and 3, this would be 2, and this would be 3. So I hope that makes sense. We'll talk about it in a little bit more detail here in a little bit, so just try to follow along. So right now what we're saying is that in keyframe 1 to 2, we want the image to come into the frame. So 1 is going to be off the frame, and 2, we're going to want to put it in the position that we're going to want it to be at. So I'm going to go ahead and drag it like so. Once again, the positioning doesn't have to be perfect, whatever looks good to you. Okay? Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and select 2 to 3. And take note that it automatically kind of changes it. We don't want this because after it sits in place, we want to give it the effect that it's just going to sit there. So to do this, before you do that, what you're going to want to do is if your little box is green here, go ahead and change that to blue. What that does is it will make sure that there's not an automatic lock set. So if that's green, change it to blue, and go ahead and reset your rotation, how you like it. After you do that, about the third button down on the keyframes, if you hover your mouse over it, it'll say Copy Motion Effects. So this is a great tool to basically tell the other keyframe what it'll copy the settings of one keyframe to the other. So we're going to do the copy start to end. And as you can see, what happened when I did that is it pretty much copied all of the values I had for this keyframe to this one. So the effect is basically it's just going to sit there. Because if you know a little bit about motion effects as is, any change between the left and the right-hand side will provide some sort of motion. So we don't want that. Okay? All right, great. So now after we've copied start to end, this will make sure that the keyframe 2 and 3 match. Okay, great. So if we preview it now, we'll take a look at kind of what's going on. So as you can see, it's just kind of floating into the frame nice and slow. So right now we're just kind of setting up all of our layers the way we want them, and at the end we'll then go back and we'll use the keyframe editor to line everything up and give everything that finishing touch with all of its timing. So the next step is to hit the plus sign. We're going to add a layer, and we're going to want to add a solid color. And just make sure it's white and then hit OK. And the reason we're doing this is because this is going to be the flash of light. So this is going to act like the camera's flash that will be taking the picture. So what we're going to want to do with this layer is all we're going to do is come to Adjustment Effects, and we're going to make sure that Layer 1 is chosen, which is our solid color 1. And then we're going to change the opacity on our ending position to 0%. So basically it's going to fade from 100% white to 0%. So if you think about it, it'll be like a flash of light and then it'll disappear. Okay? So once you've done that, hit OK. Alright, so now the base of our effect is created, and once again we're going to go and hold off on adjusting the timing until all of our other layers are completed. And the reason why we want to do this is so we can use the keyframe editor to line everything up properly. And the more you use it, you'll understand that the keyframe editor will be your friend the more keyframes and the more layers you're using. So basically, we're going to be recreating our effects the same way as we did the Nature 5. So let's go ahead and we can go back to our main screen here, and we're going to add another layer. So let's go ahead and select, you can click on this black flower here, hold down your control key, left click and drag and drop, and it'll add this black flower as our next layer. Okay? So right now we're just going to go ahead and repeat the steps we've already done for Nature 5. So if you need a little refresher, what we did is we first went to Layers, and we went to Layer Settings, and we changed the size to 60% just so they're all going to be consistent. We went to Editing, and we gave it a nice little vignette, and we made sure it was a solid color under Type, rounded rectangle, and we filled in the corners and borders, and then we set it to white. And if I'm going a little fast, sorry, I'll try to slow down a little bit, but basically what we're doing now is just the same steps as we did before. So after we've created that nice little white border to give it that photo look, we'll come up to Effects, and then we're going to do this a similar type of thing. We're going to go ahead and once again add another keyframe, so we have 1, 2, and 3, and I hit that plus sign to do that. Under the 1 to 2 keyframe, we're going to drag the image off of the screen, and under the right position, we're going to place it where we want it to show up. And I'm going to give it a little bit of rotation just so it looks a little bit better. All right. Okay, and note that I'm on the adjustment effects. I want to be on the motion effects. So once again, we're going to go ahead and click on 2 to 3 now. And we're going to hit this little guy, the third icon down. That's the copy motion effects. And that's going to copy start to end. So once again, our keyframe is going to tell it to come into frame, and we're going to copy start to end under 2 to 3 to make sure it stays there after that's finished. Okay? We're going to go ahead and do the same thing as we did before. We're going to add another solid color. It's going to be white again. And we're going to come to the adjustment effects. And we're going to make sure the opacity under the ending position or second keyframe is 0. Okay, great. And lastly, we're going to go ahead and add our last little picture here. It's going to be this pink flower. Same thing, hold down your control key, left click on it, drag and drop. That'll add that image as a layer to our already existing slide. Once it's added in, we can go ahead and go into our slide options again. We're going to make sure our layer is selected. We're going to come back to Layers, come back to Layer Settings, make sure it's 60% like the rest of them. Going to come to editing. We're going to make sure we select vignette and hit vignette. We're going to give it that solid color type. We're going to fill in the corners and border, and we're going to change it to white. So as you can see, the more you practice and the more you do this with repetition, it just becomes second nature, just like you're writing down something. You'll get the hang of it just the more you use it. So now that we have our nice little image, we'll go up to effects, and we're going to go and do the same thing. We're going to add a keyframe. We're going to go to motion effects. We're going to make sure the first keyframe is going to be off the screen. We're going to make sure the second one is going to be placed where we want it to, where its ending position is going to be. And going back to what we were talking about at the beginning, feel free to you don't have to put them exactly where I'm putting them. This is just so you understand the concept of setting your keyframes appropriately so you can be in charge of when and where it's going to move, okay? So our first keyframe is out of frame, second keyframe it's on frame. So between 2 and 3, we're going to want to copy start to end, and that'll go ahead and keep it in place for us. Okay? So that's pretty much our base effect that we've created so far. So let's just take a preview. It's not going to look right because we haven't adjusted the times yet. So as you can see, they all kind of come in all at the same time, which isn't what we're doing, but just so we know we're making progress here. Okay, great. So now that we have the base already set up for everything, we're going to go ahead and now use our keyframe editor to line up all of the timing. Okay, so one second here. Let me just get this up. The keyframe editor is going to be this fourth button down on the left-hand side under keyframes. So if you look here on keyframes, you'll have the play button, the add keyframe, the copy motion effects. The fourth one down will open the multi-layer keyframe editor. Okay, so check out this interface for a second. As you can see, it lines up all of our layers. Ooh, I just saw something that we need to do, and I forgot to do it. Good thing I did that. All right, so under layers, I forgot we want to make one more solid color for the flash for the last photo. Okay, so sorry, I just looked over it, and we'll come to adjustment effects, and we'll give the opacity 0. Okay, sorry about that. So what we should have is, just so y'all can make sure you're keeping up, we'll have our background at the bottom, we'll have the first image, and then we'll have the solid color above that, we'll have our other image, and then another solid color, then we'll have our last image, and then a solid color, okay? In that order. Now we can come to our keyframe editor. Okay, great. So the way we want to work with this is starting with the bottom, we want to work our way up. Because basically our background layer is going to be on the screen the entire slide. So we're not even going to mess with our keyframe editing here. So as you can see, the background will display 1 to 2 for the entire 7 seconds, and nothing's going to happen. What we're going to want to focus on are our other layers, because basically we're in charge of telling it when we want it to start and when we want it to end. Okay? So we're going to start with layer 6. So what we're going to want to do is set keyframe 1 to 1 second. So to choose what timing you want, you have a couple options at your disposal. This example is primarily going to focus on the setting the times by right-clicking, but you can also actually click and drag it if you like. So take note, you can drag it to where you want, or if you know the exact value, you can right-click on the keyframe and select and hit Set Time. So just take note that you can do both ways if you like. So for our first keyframe for layer 6, we're going to select the first keyframe to 1 second. And as you can see, it'll line up perfectly for 1 second. You actually have a little time meter here that'll show you what you're at. Our second keyframe, we're going to right-click it, and we're going to set that to 1.5 seconds. All right. And we're going to leave keyframe 3 just where it is. Okay, so once our layer 6 is configured properly, now we're going to move on to layer 5. And remember what this white layer is for. It's basically going to be a flash, or a flash of light indicating like a camera taking a picture. So what we're going to want to do is line up the keyframes so they're the same time values as our layer here. So what you can do is you can either line them up manually, but I wouldn't recommend doing that because the program actually has a built-in feature that allows you to basically select them both at the same time. So to do this, simply click on the first keyframe so it's highlighted in blue, hold down the control key and left click on the solid colors first keyframe. Now if you right click you can set time, and if you type in 1, take note that it'll do it for both of them. So that's a nifty little feature to line up something perfectly the way you want it. So what we're going to do is do the same thing for 2. As you can see, it's 1.5. So I'm going to go ahead and hold Control, click on 2, right click, and then hit Set Time, and we're going to do 1.5. Okay, so now it's going to line that up, and what it's going to look like when we're finished is the flash is going to happen when the image starts coming onto the screen. Okay, so that's why we're doing this. After we've done that, we're going to move on to our next layer, which is layer 4, and we're going to want to set this image to 2 seconds. So let's go ahead and do it all at once. So we're going to do the same thing with its white flash. So we're going to hold down Control and left click so they're both highlighted. We're going to right click, set time, and we're going to choose 2 seconds. Alright, and now we're going to select keyframe 2, and we're going to hold Control and click on keyframe 2 of the other color, or other layer, I'm sorry, and we're going to do that to 2.5 seconds. So set time, 2.5 seconds. So take note that our flashes are half a second, so it'll be a nice quick effect. Okay? Alright, and finally we're going to go ahead and set our last layer, and this one's going to be to 3 seconds. So hold Control, hit the 1, right click, set time, 3 seconds. And then for keyframe 2, we're going to hold Control, hit the keyframe 2 of that layer, right click, set time, excuse me, and 3.5 seconds. Alright, great. So take note that we also have a nice little preview screen here so we can kind of see what we've done. So let's go ahead and hit play and kind of see what we've accomplished so far. Awesome. That looks great. That looks exactly what we were trying to do. So once again, it may be a little like as you're watching it on your screen, may not look as it does on mine because you're on the internet. So I'm going to scrub through it just so you can see kind of what's going on. So there's that flash of light. Our first layer comes in. Flash of light. Second layer comes in. Flash of light. Third layer comes in. So that's great. Let's just take one last look into our keyframe editor just so I can kind of run over just the logic of what's going on here in the screen. Let me get my highlighter out. Okay, let me get this. Okay, great. So as you can see, we've pretty much lined it up. So our slide started. Then what happened was the flash of light happened, and our keyframe told the first layer to come into the frame. And because we have this keyframe set up, it stuck there the rest of the slide. Then incrementally we had the next flash and then the next layer come into frame, and that also stayed the rest of the slide. And lastly, we had the last picture that that had the flash, and then that took the rest of the slide. So take note, you can actually customize it however you like. You could actually have an image leaving the frame when you want, rotating. So feel free to use any adjustment effects or motion effects with the same capability. Okay? Alright, great. This effect actually isn't over yet, so we have one last little thing that we're going to need to go through, and that's to add the sound. And as you guys know, the slideshow isn't just pictures. You know, the sound is another sense that's gonna get to your audience. So obviously, it's a very important feature to include in your slideshows. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna add a little camera noise to give it the effect that it's actually taking pictures. So to do this, we actually provided you with this camera sound. So it's in the miscellaneous folder, which came with your toolkit that you downloaded before entering the class, and it's called camera.wav. So as you can see, I just simply went to my miscellaneous folder, and what you're going to want to do is there's three pictures. So we're going to want to drag and drop it into our soundtrack, not once, not twice, but we want 3 times. And for some reason it's not loading. All right. So once you load in your soundtrack, you'll notice that at the bottom of your screen you'll have your audio wavelengths. So it'll be green, blue, and then green. What we want to do is hit the tab key so it turns the audio. Well, it'll turn your soundtrack into a bigger viewing mode. And we're also going to want to kind of zoom in a little bit so we have a better representation of what's happening at this point. For some reason it's not importing that properly, so let me go ahead and just remove these, re-import them really quick. Okay, so I'm going to drag and drop that. I'm going to drag and drop it again. Drag and drop it again. Okay, so that looks better. Okay, as you can see, I dragged in the camera.wave 3 times. And I'm pretty zoomed in right now, so I have a pretty close, and you can do that by using your scroll on your mouse. And if you remember the timing that we had the pictures come in, I believe we had 1 second for the first one, 2 seconds for the second one, and 3 seconds for the third one. So let me get out my little pen here. And so with knowing that our effects are happening at 1 second, 2 seconds, and then 3 seconds, we can then use this little measuring thing to line up our audio tracks appropriately. So, to move an audio track, let me show you how that's done. What you can do is, let me get off of this thing. Okay, great. Excellent. Okay. So make sure you're in the mode that has the soundtracks in the larger view. So hit the tab key to do that. You're going to hover your mouse over the first track and then hold down the control key, and you'll notice a yellow bar will populate around it. While this is like this, you can click on it and then you can drag it directly under where you want it to be. So as you can see, I lined it up the best I could so it starts right at 1 second. I'm going to do the same thing for the second one. I'm going to go ahead and drag it to the left for the 2. And then for the last one, I'm going to drag that under the 3. Okay? So, I don't think my speakers will play for you guys, but basically when I play this, here, I need to do that again. Let me hit tab. Okay. When I play this, I'm hearing, every time you see a flash, I'm hearing a noise of a camera. So, obviously this is just a visual representation and my mic is only recording my voice, so take my word for it. If you followed my directions, you should have a noise of a camera snapping a photo when the flash of light enters the screen. So it's a great, cool effect if you're going for like a Polaroid camera, little pictures flying onto your background. Okay, so that's going to be the ending of our first example for today. And so feel free to use that in any, be creative with it. Once again, you can use 5 layers. You can use as many layers as your heart desires. Just follow the steps we went over and you can duplicate it as many times as you need. Also, don't feel that they have to come in from the top. They can come in from the left, bottom, right, diagonally. They can rotate in. They can zoom in. Whatever your heart desires. Just basically understand the basics, functionality of the keyframing we went through. Okay? And I see some of you raising your hands. Just take note. We'll push through the lesson, and if we need to, we'll recover anything that you're confused or having problems with. Okay? So we're going to continue on to our next effect of the class. So what we're going to do is go back to our images, and all right, this one. All right, great. Our next effect that we're going to be creating is called the Spin Doctor, and in this example we're going to be combining advanced keyframe motion with some slight effects keyframing to create a spinning image effect. So if you remember the preview I showed you earlier, what's going to happen is we're pretty much going to have a, let me just go ahead and drag in the image we're going to be using, this guy right here, this rocket ship. Basically the effect we're going to be going for is the slide's going to come into the frame from the left-hand side, and oops, okay, it's going to come in from the left-hand side to the right. It's going to stop like right here, and then it's going to do like a little spinny maneuver, like it's rotating like a door. Then we're going to have another layer come in, and that's going to do a similar type of little spinny effect. And then we'll have our last layer to complete the effect with the last little spinny thing. And then at the very end we'll go through how to give you a nice little gradient background that'll just complete the whole slide and make it look nice. Okay? So let's go ahead and get started on this effect. We're making good time here. So let's go ahead, let me erase that for you so it's not in your way. Okay, great. Okay, good. So as you can see, I've drag and dropped this new image into the slide. And before we get started, remember about the old slide timing. This is a pretty important feature. I mean, it's a very important first step to make sure you know what time your slide's going to be. Because in essence, the timing of the slide is your canvas if you're a painter. It's basically how long you have to work with to get everything you're wanting to get in to happen. So as you can see, it's 7 seconds because my last slide was 7 seconds. So for this one, we're going to want to change it to 10 seconds because there's more things happening. We need longer time for these things to happen. So I set it to 10. Transition's going to be 0. And we're going to go ahead, oh, by the way, this image is called space_02.jpg if you're following along. So we're going to double click the slide to come into our slide options screen. And we're going to go ahead and go to the Layers tab, and we're going to hit Layer Settings. Okay, we're going to first want to change the zoom value for the image, and we're going to change it to 55%. We're then going to come up here and click on the Editing tab, and instead of using a vignette this time, we're just going to simply give it an outline. So go ahead and just check the box on next to outline, and then we're just going to make sure it's white. So if it's not set to white, once again, just click on the little triangle where the white is, and then hit Set Color. Okay? That'll give us a nice little distinguishing, just a thing to kind of get it off of the black background. So it'll give us a nice little white border to distinguish the image from the border, or the background, I'm sorry. Next, after we've done that, we're going to go ahead and click on Effects, and we're going to want to be under the Motion Effects tab. We're going to go ahead and add a new keyframe. So if you remember how to do that, simply hit the plus sign under the keyframes, and that's going to go ahead and create a new keyframe. So we'll have a total of 3. 1, 2, and then 3. We're going to want to set the time for keyframe 2. That's this one right here. And we're going to set it to 0.5 seconds. So remember how to do that. You simply right-click on the keyframe, and then you left-click on Set Time for this keyframe, and type in 0.5. And that's going to be a half a second long. Okay? We're also going to want to set the time for keyframe 3, and we're going to set this one to 0.75. So that's just 1/4 of a second after the second keyframe. So just so you know, I mean, this is all happening within 1 second, so it's going to happen very quickly, okay? We're now going to select keyframes 1 and 2, so we're going to click between the 1 and 2, so it'll highlight it in blue. And in keyframe 1, which is the starting position on the left-hand side, we're going to move the layer off of the screen to the left of the slide. So it doesn't have to be exact, but we do have some values if you want to be precise. So under your pan X, you can type in -65, and for the y-axis, just make sure that's 0. So it's a nice straight line. Okay. We're then going to select between the 2 and 3 keyframes. So between 2 and 3, we're going to go ahead and move the image layer so that it's visible on the right-hand side of the slide. And the pan values for this are going to be 31 and 0. So as you can see, it's right there. All right. So what we're going to want to do is, okay, so this kind of adjusted. So what we're going to want to do is, let's see here. Okay, great. So anyways, let's just preview it, see what it looks like. Okay, so it's coming in, and we're going to want it to stay there. So actually, all right. Okay, so after we've done that, we're still on 2 and 3. I'm sorry, I'm just kind of flustered here. We're going to come down here to our settings and take note of this chain link thing. What this chain does is it basically makes it so the X and Y values are going to be related to each other. So if you change one, it will affect the other. For an effect that we're going for with this, we're just going to want to change the X-axis. So we're going to want to break this chain so that we can do that. So what we're going to want to do is, well, if you need to, uncheck the green, and then you can click on the chain link thing. We're also going to want to do that for this side. So make sure that chain is unchecked. So on the keyframe 3 position, what we're going to want to do is change the zoom X value to 0%. So if you come down here, go ahead and hit 0. And make sure that you've unchecked that chain, because if you hit 0 and that chain is checked, the Y value is also going to be altered. So take note, you'll have like this kind of funny looking like little vertical thing here. And what we're doing, the way this effect works, let me just get out my pen so I can explain it a little bit better. When it gets to this point with this keyframe, we have like a square image. What we're telling it to do, when we change the zoom X to 0%, this square image is actually going to just turn into just a straight line. So if you think about a rotating thing, we're going to use the features of the program to then flip it so it'll give it like it'll kind of smush into a straight line, and then it will grow back into the image. Okay? So that's kind of what we're working with, just to kind of explain it a little bit better. Okay, so continuing forth, after we've done that, we're then going to go ahead and, let's see here. Well, let's go ahead and preview it just so you can see what's going on. Okay, so it's kind of happening fast. I don't know if y'all can pick that up from the streaming online video, but basically what's happening is it's coming into the frame, and then it's just turning into nothingness. It turns into like a vertical line pretty much. Okay? So that's like the first half of the effect we're going for. So after we've added our first image layer and set the starting motion, the next steps, we're going to add a copy of this image layer, and we're going to make it so it appears to expand from that vertical line we've just achieved. So when it comes out of its rotation, it's going to be flipped horizontally. So this is actually what's going to create our illusion that the image has been flipped over. So to do this, we're going to go ahead and go to our Layers tab, and we're going to go to Layers Settings, and we're going to go ahead and add a new image layer. So click on the plus sign and then hit Add Image or Video, and we're going to go ahead and select the same image we just used. So that's space 02, and as you can see, it's going to create the same image that we just were working on. So we're going to go ahead and pretty much set it up as we did the last layer. So we're going to go to the Editing tab. We're going to enable the outline. We're going to make sure it's white. Okay, and now here's the important part. We're going to make sure that for this layer, we're going to have it horizontally flipped. So under the flip, make sure that the horizontal box is checked. So basically, you'll notice that this one will be flipped on the horizontal axis, giving it it'll look like it's been flipped over on its side. Okay. After we've done that, we're going to go ahead and select Effects and then Motion Effects, and we're going to go ahead and add a keyframe, and we'll have 3 keyframes, 1, 2, and 3. We're going to set keyframe 1 to 0.75 seconds. Don't hit set slide time. Make sure you hit set time for this keyframe. It's 0.75. Okay. For keyframe 2, we're going to set this one to 1 second. And then set keyframe 3 to 10 seconds, which, as you can see, it's already at 10 seconds. It's at the very end of the slide. Okay? All right. So now we're going to go ahead and select the keyframes 1 and 2 by clicking between the 1 and the 2. And in the starting position up here, we're going to place the image layer in the same location as the one you created a moment ago. So if you go back here, you'll notice that it's, let's see here, it is ending on 31.0. So we're going to go ahead and make sure that we start it at 31.0. Okay? So as you can see, what you can do is click on your other layer, and you see how it ended by clicking on the third layer. Under pan, it's 31.0, meaning that's where it ends up. So we're going to want to make sure our other layer is set at 31.0 to start with, because what's happened is we're basically picking up where that last layer left off. Okay? So after we've done that, we're going to go ahead and come down here again, and we're going to make sure our chain link icon is broken again. So make sure that's you'll see it. If it's connected, that's not what we want. Uncheck it or unbreak it. Same with this side. And what we're going to want to do is set the X value to 0% for the keyframes for the starting position. So as you can see, it's going to be the vertical line that we ended up with the last one. Okay? So now that that's at 0, we just want to make sure that the Y zoom is set to 55%, so it matches what our last layer was as well. And now in the keyframe 2 position, just make sure the chain link icon is broken once again, and we're going to want to set the X value to the same as the Y value. So these should both be 55%. Okay? And that's what's going to give it the ability to grow back to what it looked like before after it spins. So we're just going to go ahead and select copy, or we're going to select keyframes 2 and 3. So that's between the 2 and the 3. And we're going to click copy, which is this guy, the third button down, the copy motion effects. And we're going to want to select, well, before you do that, make sure that these are set to blue. That's set to blue. If that's green, once again, that can affect the other layer. So make sure that's blue first, and then we're just going to make sure that we hit this and then copy start to end. And as you can see, it will then copy our settings to the third keyframe. Okay? All right. Actually, we need to make sure these are... Okay. Let's see here. What did I just do? Okay. Okay, great. So now if we preview it at this time, check it out. There's our effect that we were going for. So take note that this is just the first layer, the first little thing that we're doing on this slide. We're going to recreate this 2 more times. So once again, if that was a little quick, let me kind of scrub through it. Let's see here. Hit OK. So as I scrub through it, the effect that we just created, the slide came in. So our first keyframe told it to come in. Our second keyframe made it smush into a vertical line. We added another layer, and we basically had that other layer pick up where our last layer came off, and that gives it that nice little spinning effect. So that's really nice. I don't know if y'all can see that. So that's where we're at right now. Okay, great. Excellent. We're making good headway here. Okay, so now that we've previewed it, we're now going to want to create the other two image layers. So basically we're going to follow the same steps outlined above that we just went through. So we're going to have some minor adjustments though for the time and location on the slide. So as you can see, obviously we can't do the same steps because it'll put it in the same exact place that this layer was. So we'll go through that. Let's just go ahead and get started with the next ones. So to create the other two rotating images, let's go ahead and just start by adding in our next layer. So you can actually do it right here if you like, or if you rather just come to the Layers tab, and under Layer Settings, we can make sure that we do it here. Click on the plus button, and then hit Add Image or Video. And the next image we're going to use is space_04. And then it's this this guy on the moon, the astronaut with the American flag. Go ahead and change the zoom value to, let's just do it to 55%, make sure it's consistent with our other layer. Okay, we're going to go ahead and come to the Editing tab, make sure we give it that white outline. Then we're going to come to Effects, and under Motion Effects, alright, so this is kind of where we want to pay attention to the slight adjustments we're making. So if you remember back to how we did our first layer, we had it coming in and then we had it turned to 0% on the x-axis between 2 and 3. So if you take note of the time here, it stopped its motion at 0.750 on the keyframe. So for this one, we're going to want to start at around 1 second because we don't want this layer to come in until this layer is finished whatever it was doing. So we're going to set the time for this keyframe to 1 second. So take note, we're going to need to add another keyframe. So we have 1, 2, and 3. And we're pretty much going to be doing the same thing that we did with this layer down here. So if you need to cheat and come down here just to see what we've done, I mean, that's basically what I like to do is just go off of what we've set up already. So we've had 1 to 2, which is basically having the layer come into frame, and the timing is going to be about a half a second and then another 0.25 seconds. So we're going to do the same thing with this. So as you can see, it starts at 1, so we're going to want 2 to be 1.5, and then we're going to want 3 to be 1.75. So that's going to be the same type of timing we had set up with our original layer that we did already that looked just the way we wanted it to. So the only difference, if you take note, that this next layer is going to start after this layer is finished with its business. Okay? So we pretty much recreated this only at an offsetted position. So if you preview it really quickly, you'll see what I mean. So the first one will come in. Well, we haven't done any effects yet. So just so you know that's why we did that. Okay. So after we've finished, 1 second, let me do that. Okay, great. So now what we're going to do is we're going to have our starting position off of the screen again. And we're going to have this guy kind of position it where you like. So that looks good in the middle right there. And then between 2 and 3, we're going to go ahead and make sure the chain link fence or the chain is broken. Same with this side. And we're going to go ahead and change the zoom X to 0%. And if you remember, that's, well, as you can see, that kind of, let's see here. Okay, that's why. Okay. All right, so now that we've done the same exact steps for this one, we're going to go ahead and add our other layer for our space image again. So you don't actually have to go back to the Layers tab. Just so you know, you can actually just click on this plus button, and we can add that space image one more time as well. Oh, not that one. Let me remove that. And I'm going to go ahead and add in our space 4. I'm sorry about that. Okay. Well, actually, we do need to come back to layers because we do need to change the zoom. It's too big, so we're going to go ahead and change it to 55%. Once again, I know this is repetitious, but we have to do it whenever you're working with multiple layers and you're duplicating slides. You want to make sure that everything you've done lines up. So we're going to make sure that the white outline is still there. Once we've done that, we're going to come back to our effects. And now we're going to take a look at what we've already done with this one. So as you can see, this one starts at 0.75, and this one ended at 0.75. So this one ends at 1.75, so that means this one's going to start at, you got it, 1.75. Okay, and also it looks like this was just a 0.25 change, so for our second keyframe we're going to change that to, this one was 1.75, so it looks like that's going to be 2. Okay, great. So we're working with basically 0.25 increments here. So as you can see, I keep kind of going back to this one to check, because basically we're just mimicking what we've already done. We're just adding in a different image and doing it the same way. So as you can see, for this one, we need another keyframe, so we can go ahead and add a keyframe, and then we're just going to drag the 3 all the way to the end. All right, great. So now that we have it in place, remember back to what we did originally. We had it come into frame, and then it turned into a vertical line, and then we added a duplicate layer, we flipped it, and then we had it grow in opacity. So we're going to do the same thing with this one. So that one's finished to its line, so now we're going to be working on this one, and if you recall what we did, we were between 1 and 2, so click between the 1 and 2 keyframe. Under the X, zoom X, we're going to make sure the chain is undone. We're going to change the 55% to 0. And then on the right-hand side, under keyframe 2, we're going to make sure it gets back to normal. And then between 2 and 3, we just want to make sure that we copy start to end, so that the keyframe 2 will equal keyframe 3. And once again, I know this can be a little confusing. It's even confusing for me sometimes. So if you get lost, don't worry. We'll answer any questions you have at the end. So let's just preview what we've done so far. Okay, great. So as you can see, we pretty much did the same exact steps, and it gave us the same exact effect, only we had to adjust when this layer came in. So remember that all we did was change the first keyframe to start a little bit later. Okay? So we're going to lastly go ahead and add our last image, which is actually going to be the same image as our first one. So we'll come back to layers, we'll hit the plus sign, we'll add image, and we'll add in space 2. And once again, you know the drill. Layer settings, zoom to 55, editing to check the outline, make sure it's white, come to effects, under motion effects. All right, great. So the last one's going to come in after this one's finished with its business. So if you come down here, you'll take note that it stops at 1.750. So we'll want this one to start at, let's see here, so that's at 1.75. So we'll want this one to start at 2. So right click on the first keyframe, and we're going to set that to, did I say 2? Yes, I did. Okay, good. All right. Okay, so now that we have that, it's at 2.0. We're going to have our second keyframe. We're going to set that to 2.25. And then our last one is going to be, oh, wait a minute. Let's see here. This one was 1 to 1.5, sorry. So that's going to be 2 to 2.5. Not 2.25, I'm sorry. It's 2.5. And then if you click on this one, it looks like it was 1.5 and 1.75. So this last keyframe, to add another one, hit the plus sign. and we're going to make sure this last one is going to be 2.5. Okay, let me just make sure that for some reason it doesn't look right. So it goes 1 to 1.5. This one goes to 1 to. Oh, that's why. Okay, we need this one to be 2.5, and then we need. That's why. Okay, now I got it. Okay, so we want 2 to be 2.5, and we want 3 to be 2.75. Okay, great. Sorry about that, everybody. Like I said, it can be confusing. So as you can tell, I just had to come back to our layer that we've already done and took note that it was 1 to 1.5 and then 1.5 to 1.75. For this last one, we're just doing the same thing, only moved up a second increment. So it's going to be 2 to 2.5 to 2.75. And once again, for the first keyframe will be off the screen. Our second one will be just somewhere which looks nice to you. And then 2 to 3, we're going to make sure that the little chain link fence thing is unchecked. And we're going to also, let's see here, we want to make sure that the pan position is the same. So minus 32.3. Okay, and remember to make it to flip, we want the X zoom to be 0. Okay. All right, great. So we've done that, and now we're going to go ahead and add our duplicate layer again. So we're going to come back to layers. We're going to add in the same image one last time, so that's space 2. Remember, for the duplicates, we need to make sure it's horizontal. We also want to make sure it has an outline. And also, we want to make sure it's 55% zoom. Okay? And let me see here. I think I forgot to do the, I did. The horizontal I forgot to do for the duplicate of our second layer. So once again, if you ever look over something, or you can always go back and fix it. So that's the great thing about the software. All right, so now that we have that layer set up, we're going to go ahead and mimic just what we've done with our past ones. And as you can see, this one starts at 1.75, and this one ended at 1.75. So this one ended at 2.75. We're going to need this one to start at 2.75. Okay, and if you take note also, this keyframe is 1.75 to 1.875, which we want to actually be, let's see here, 1.75, this should actually be 2. Okay, so this one's going to be 2.75, and we want our 2 to be 3. So we're still working with those 0.25 increments, okay? And as you can see, we have the third keyframe, so we're actually going to need to add another keyframe to this one as well. And just go ahead and drag that guy to the end of the slide. And what we're going to do is click between the 1 and 2, and it's going to start at 0% under the XY. Once again, make sure that chain link thing is unchecked. You're going to want to set that to 0. And also, what I forgot to mention is we're going to need the starting position to equal the ending position of this last one. So as you can see, it was minus 32.3 for me. So I'm going to need to make sure that this is minus 32.3 as well. And that will make sure that it lines up properly with the other layer. Okay? And then 2 to 3. Okay, so that's... Okay, so after we've set 0 for the X, it'll turn it to the little skinny verticalness. And we're also going to need to make sure that we have it come back to its normal size by having the keyframe 2 go back to 55%. All right. And then we can just copy start to end so that it stays, oh, let's see here. These are green, so minus 3.32.3. And then we can do a copy start to end, and there it goes. And that will make sure it sticks there. Okay. Whew. We're getting close to the end here. All right, so we've done everything that we needed to do. So let's go ahead and preview it and see what we've got. Oh no, something went terribly wrong here. Okay, let's see here. Let's go. All right, go into your keyframe editor just as we were before, and let's preview it while in here so we can actually take a look at exactly what's happening and how we have it set up. So if you preview it here, you'll see what we've done, and that looks good. I don't know why it looked like that on the other one. I was a little scared there for a second, but okay, so I'm going to go ahead and scrub through this a little bit slower so you guys can see what's going on. So we have our first image come in. The X zoom changed to 0, which caused it to become vertical. We added the other layer, and then we started it where the other one left off, and it grew. And then we had the next one come in. It did its same little thing. And then we had the last one come in, and that did its little zoom too. All right, cool. So once again, this can be really confusing because just take note of all the little things we've done. We've pretty much set up waypoints saying, okay, between here and here I want this to happen. Between here and here I want this to happen. And we also have other layers doing things at the same time. So in essence, you always want to kind of take it one step at a time, and you want to preview your show as you go along. Because let's say you're just kind of put your head down and you just kind of go through all the steps. And if you preview and it doesn't look right, you'll be like, oh my goodness, what did I do, or where did I go wrong? I mean, if you have 100 keyframes, like, you'll have to go through each and every one of them to pretty much get back to where you were. So it's always best to kind of preview as you change something, just so you have an idea as you're creating your show. Okay, I screwed this up. I can easily fix this by doing this. Okay, great. So if you're following along step by step with me, you probably ran into a stumble here or there. But once again, your ending effect is, if you need to, we can just go through it one more time and just make sure you have those steps down. But in the end, it'll look like this. So we have our effects in place. So that finishes that part of it. Now what we're going to do, just to give it its last little pizzazz, we're going to go ahead and create a nice little background for the slide. So let's go back into our slide options by double-clicking on the slide. And what we're going to want to do is we're going to go to the Slide tab at the top. We're going to then hit Background, and we're going to go ahead and hit the On and Off button, and then we're going to hit Gradient, and then we're going to hit Edit Gradient. Okay? And basically what a gradient is, it's a built-in kind of filtering for different fades and shading for different colors. It's a great utility for backgrounds or cool little effects for colors. For our effect, we're actually going to do a simple, and we're just going to go ahead and change the color manually. So as you see here, we can simply just click on this white keyframe looking thing, and you can hit Set, and we're going to go ahead and just use blue for now. So as you can see, it's a basic blue to black fade of a gradient, and we're going to go ahead and angle it so it goes top to bottom. So I'm going to angle it to about whatever looks good to you, but I'm going to use 270 for this example, so we have a nice blue to black fade. All right, I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. So that's my background now for this slide. I'm now going to add a solid color. So under the layers, we're going to hit the plus button, and we're going to hit solid color, and we're going to set the color to black. So in the triangle, kind of drag it down to the black section, and then hit set color. Under opacity, you're going to want to change that to 55%. Okay? After you hit OK, just make sure that you drag the solid layer all the way to the bottom. Okay? So if you saw what I did, I just clicked on it, and then I dragged it, and I dropped it at the very bottom. The reason we want it on the bottom is because the way layers work is you'll only see the top layer if it's covering something. So if this is on top, it's going to cover everything we've already done, which we don't want to do. We want it to be the bottom, okay? Now we're going to go ahead and position, let's see here, we're going to position the solid color layer so it's going to cover the bottom half of our background. So what we can do is just come to Layers, and we can click on our solid one, and you can just drag it down a little bit just so it covers the bottom a little bit, like that. You don't have to be precise. If you want to be, you can come here and under Position, type in 0 and then 30. That's what we have set up for you if you want to do it how we have it. Okay? So that's there. Now we're going to go ahead and add another solid color, and we're going to set this one to orange. So feel free to choose any orange color you like and hit Set Color. And this one we're going to go ahead and also drag to the very bottom. So even if it's above the solid color 1, just make sure it's the very bottom. Okay? And then lastly, we're going to go to the Layers, and then Layer Settings, or actually Editing, I'm sorry. And then we're going to click on the Vignette button, and we're going to set the vignette shape to ellipse, and we're then going to change the type to transparent. And lastly, just make the size 100%. Okay, great. Oops, I did that for the wrong layer, so I hope y'all didn't follow that direction. Basically, we're trying to do that for the orange layer, so make sure the orange layer is selected. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to do the solid color back. So we did the ellipse, transparent, 100%. So it'll give us that nice little orange glow. So I'm actually going to come back here and uncheck what I did, and I think that's all I had to do. Let me just make sure. Okay, yeah, so let's just take a look at what it looks like. Yeah, it looks fine. All right, so that's basically a nice little background for you. And let's just take a look at what we've created now. You should now have a nice background behind your moving image layers, and our 3 images should enter from the left side of the slide one at a time. And when they come in, they should flip, or they should rest and then flip over, and it'll show it as if it were laying face down. All right, so I know it's been a long one, but basically, at this point I want to thank you guys for participating in our online class today. That concludes our actual walkthrough demonstrations of the examples. So because this type of information is a lot, and it can be very confusing because, yeah, there's a lot of things going on. We're changing a lot of settings, and things are actually going off of each other. So one misclick can actually affect your other layer. It can affect basically what you're trying to do. So we have plenty of time to talk about questions you may have at this point. So the way we're going to do this is it's kind of, as you guys ask the questions, I'll do my best to give you a good answer. So let me go ahead and get this set up. Let me, 1 second, please. Okay, everybody, so right now, if you have a question, simply just go ahead and type it into your little box there. And the way this is going to work is I'll go ahead and read it aloud so the whole class can hear it, and then I'll go ahead and answer it. So once again, in this class, really, I wish it was even a little bit longer so I could actually go into more detail. But once again, this is now it's time to go through what you guys need. So, all right, great. I have my first question from Shannon, and basically she wants to explain the function of the chain link fence again. Great question. Let's do that first. Okay. So the chain link fence thing, basically what it is for is It's a built-in thing with the software that if you have an image and you resize it, let me just go ahead and just get a new image so I can show you what I mean. Okay, so let's say you have an image, right? And if you resize an image to maintain the integrity of the X and Y axis, you know, like if you have an image of a person, if you make it smaller, most people want the actual person to stay the way they are, you know, like so if the image shrinks, the person would proportionately shrink. This chain link fence basically means that the X and Y are locked. So if you uncheck that, it's basically if you're wanting to say, you know, I don't care about the person or what, I mean, not the person, but you know, if it's just so you can like really get at, okay, I want just the x-axis to change. So if this is locked, you'll notice that if you move the x, the y is automatically going to change with it. So the reason we unchecked that was so we could get that vertical 0 zoom x. So then we could apply it to that to give us that spinning effect that we went for. Okay. So great question. I really appreciate that, Shannon. You have actually another one. And also, while trying to edit her sound, she clicked on Edit Track, got the message the default sound editor has been not configured. Would you like to do now? Blah, 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 blah. All right, yeah, Shannon. Basically, that error just means that you haven't set up your, let's see here, I'll show you exactly what you can do. Basically, the program allows you to set up alternate programs if you choose to use other things for your editing. So basically, it's just telling you you haven't gone here and you haven't selected a default sound editor, which you don't even have to select one. That may be some weird thing going on with your program. I actually, Shannon, would recommend you contact our customer support for free. Just go to our website at photodex.com. Under support, it'll give you all the information. Just give us a ring. One of our reps will be happy to get that squared away for you. Okay? But I do appreciate your question, and please ask another one if you need to. And thank you for that. All right, Leah, Ms. Cole, can you add or subtract overall time after you've done all your keyframes? Great question. Okay. When working with keyframes, it's always the best to kind of think of it like you're writing an essay. You don't want to just kind of just get started without having an idea in mind. It's always best to get out a piece of paper and almost like write down and just think about what you're trying to do and get it set in your head. Because basically keyframes work off of the total time of your slide. So if, for example, I were to adjust our 10-second slide to 20 seconds, basically, if we go back in here and kind of see what we've done, you'll notice that all of our keyframes are still intact. It's just going to change them because basically instead of going off of, you know, our actual values are still going to be proportionate. It's just throwing everything off because there's more time to work with, if that makes sense. So you can add or subtract overall time. It's just something you'd want to avoid if possible because ultimately you want to have an idea of what your slide needs to be in the first place. So always start by understanding, okay, how long am I going to need for this to happen? And then just take some time to break up the different layers you're going to be using. And once again, it's always best to just think about it before you do it. That way you won't have to go back and change anything that's been altered. Okay? Great question, though, by the way. Okay, Les wants to know, how do you create the motion of the train found in the enhanced slideshow of our gallery? It's a great question, Les. Basically, I would be happy to walk you through something like that. It's just with the time we have now, I'm basically going to need you to call our support, and we'll be happy to give you more information on a specific effect. Basically, it's just something we can't really do over the class system. I can't. Basically, I can educate you on any tools you'll need to use or how it can be done. Unfortunately, I just don't have that in front of me right now. But Les, don't feel bad. Just give me a call. Go to photodex.com, go to our support, give us a ring, and any of our reps will be happy to get you to the point to understand what you need to do. Okay? Appreciate the question, though. All right, Alexandra. In example 1, when it's done, the first layer up to point number 16, I guess you're talking about the notes. Let me go ahead and get those. See what we're, 1 second. That out of my notes. Okay. On point number 16. Okay, where it's saying change the opacity value for the ending position to 0%. I was wondering, is it possible to copy whole thing and replace the JPEG file to save time? Yes, actually you can. And what I was kind of showing you guys for this example, just to make it easier on you, but take note, you can definitely save yourself time by just copying or duplicating layers that you're needing. So for what you're asking, like for these solid colors I created, I didn't have to go ahead and make each individually. I could have simply just right-clicked on it and then hit duplicate layer, and I could have used that, and it basically will preserve all of the settings I've created. So Alexandra, that would save you time. So definitely I would play with that, hit the copy, and just replace it with the JPEG file. But depending on how you do it, it could affect the settings. So just after you copy and paste it, make sure you just go over to what you've copied and pasted to make sure it does have those same values. If not, you can actually use the copy button over here, and you can say copy blank to next slide. You can copy it to next layer. You can copy it to all keyframes. So under this copy setting, you may just want to, after this class, kind of play around with these different options, because basically we were just using the copy start to end. You can also copy end to start. You can also copy end to next slide. So there's a lot of little features in the software that'll definitely help you save time by making duplicates of what you've already done. And example 2, the rocket, yes, exactly. Great question, Alexandra. That's correct. You can do that. Just simply you can copy but once again, you're only going to want to duplicate something that's going to be consistent with what you're doing. Because if I copy a layer, it's going to keep all of the settings, the pan, the zoom, the rotation, any adjustments. So understand it should only be copied if it's going to be needed to be the same exact thing, okay? But yes, that you can do that, and a great question. Okay, Les, thanks. Where can we download files for today's training? Great question, Les, and I appreciate it. Whenever a class is finished, like today, what happens is I'll immediately start rendering the file to a video format, and as soon as that's finished, we'll go ahead and shoot it up to our website. And because you've taken the class, you are entitled to download or access from the website whenever you want. So feel free if you need once again, we went over a lot of stuff, so many of you may need to actually rewatch this video once or even twice, because I mean, to be honest, it took me like a while to get this type of concept down myself. So don't feel bashful. I mean, but basically it just takes a little time to process the amount of information. As you can tell, an hour-long video will take a little bit of time. So it'll be available to you in 24 hours. So if this is your first time rewatching a class, just go ahead and give us a call. We'll be happy to direct you exactly where you need to go to get that information, okay? So appreciate that question, Les, and you have a good one. All right, Alexandra, for exercise 1, wants to know, is it possible to duplicate layers for flash layer instead of creating from scratch? Yes, it is, and let me show you how to do that. So as you can see, we have pretty much the same exact thing for each flash effect we made. In essence, Alexander, all you really had to do is make one of them. I just did it just so y'all kind of were able to see exactly what I was doing. So what I did, I just removed them. And what I'm going to do, all you have to do is duplicate layer, and then just duplicate it again. So as you can see, I'll have my flash layers immediately created. just take note that in order for it to work the way we wanted it to, it needs to go solid color picture, solid color picture, solid color picture, and then our background, okay? And then after you've duplicated them, once again, to give it that flash effect, you remember that we went into our keyframe editor and we lined everything up. So the flash happened right when our image came into the frame. So as you can see, we duplicated the layer, so it automatically made them for that. So you will need to readjust them, and you can simply do that by just lining them up with the layer right underneath it. Okay, so that's another option you have to do something like this. And I like your thinking, Alexandra. It's great ideas. And once again, the program is more than capable of doing things multiple different ways. So as you're using the software, feel free to find what works best for you. Don't ever think that you have to do something a certain way. Just do what feels right and do what will make you what will get the job done, obviously, in the least amount of time. So great example of that, saving some time by copying your layers. All right, Alexandra, how to change location of rotation? Not around middle, but around a corner. Okay, so you're looking like for a rotation from a certain point, I'm guessing, right? Instead of, here, let me bring open a new slide. Okay, so with this layer, so what you're asking, basically, you don't want to rotate it on the fixed point in the center. You want to be able to kind of rotate it around a fixed point, I'm guessing. Let's see here. I believe there is a way. Okay, under our effects. Here it is, right here. Under rotation center, Alexandra, make sure that if you change your rotation center, let's say 50 by 50, basically you can provide coordinates of where you want the axis to rotate around. So as you can see, I gave it a 50-50, so now it's not rotating from the actual center of the image, but it's rotating from a fixed point 50 by 50 on this image. So I'm not really good at knowing the coordinates, so it's going to take a little trial and error to kind of rotate it on the point exactly where you want it to be. But you do have that option. It's right underneath your rotation tool here under motion effects. Just make sure you change the rotation center, okay? And I hope that helps. All right, Leah, in captions, motions, do the keyframes work the same as photos? Yes, they do. Great question. I love your all's questions today. It's great. Sounds like you guys really have a good grasp on the software. I like to hear that. So caption motion basically acts the same way as a picture. So you'll notice that we added a caption. We're under caption motion. And you'll see your little keyframe bars just as we were working with earlier. And pretty much everything you can do with the images will be consistent with with your captions. So as you can tell, I just kind of did a couple keyframes, and it's going to kind of bounce up. So yeah, everything you learned today can be applied the same type of effects to the caption motion. Okay, so feel free to play with that too. Thank you, Les. Appreciate it. All right, Shannon. Didn't think you could download the videos. Did I hear you right? After I take this class, yes, you can. Excellent. Let me re-explain it to everybody, because this is actually an important thing, especially because I feel that I may have went a little quickly at some points. Also, I did kind of derail there at one point. I kind of screwed up something, but I would request everybody checking out the video file when this is finished. And once again, after this class is finished, we'll upload it to our website. So if you log into your member account on photodex.com and go into your classes, at the bottom right you can click on this thing called My Account, and then you'll see a thing that says Classes I've Attended. If you click on that, this video is not going to be available for 24 hours because of the time it takes to upload, but once it's there, you can simply click on the class you've attended, and you'll have the option to either save the video file to your hard drive, which I would recommend. It actually will play better once it's stored on your machine rather than streaming it over the internet like this class is. So you can download it and rewatch it, and everything we're talking about right now will be on that video. And if you ever need to brush me up, let's say you put down the software for a couple months, you're doing something else, or you're traveling, taking pictures, feel free to, this video file will be there when you get back. So if you forget on what we learned today, or if you just, are having trouble understanding what we went through, once again, watching it 1 or 2 more times will get you to the point where it'll become more familiar and it'll just become second nature to you. So you did hear me right. You can go ahead and rewatch it again as soon as it's uploaded. Should take about 24 hours, Shannon. All right, Les wants to know, can the caption be locked to an image? Yes, it can. Well, let's see here. Good question. Let me see exactly what we would do for this. So basically you're asking, like, if you give your layer some motion, you want basically your caption to move with it, I'm assuming. So let's take a look at how this can be achieved. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and give our layer a left to right motion, nice and basic. And if we preview it, we'll notice that the earth moves, but the caption just sits there. So let's see here. We'll go under caption motion. And basically there's no locking. It's not going to lock it to the slide, but all you have to do is just line up your caption directly over your image. So, basically it'll just be, you just kind of put the captions at the same places. Oops, see, I did it a little bit too soon there, so that kind of looks a little weird. So it is going to take a little trial and error, but if you're going to have motion to a slide, you're going to need to pretty much copy the effect to the actual layer as well, or the caption. So it can be done. It's just there's no, at least I'm not aware of the locking feature that'll just make it stuck to that slide. What you can do to make it easier is possibly, I don't know, if you actually can put the caption on the slide and save it as a file, and then you'll just have it as the image. You know what I'm saying? That may be easier for you, Les. Appreciate the question, though. Example 2, can you copy coordinates from one layer to another in different keyframes? Yes, you can, Alexander. Let me show you how to do that. Okay, so let's say you have a layer and you've done a bunch of effects to it, and you want to easily copy that to another layer or another keyframe. Basically, any effect with a numeral value you can copy. So if you take note under our motion effects or your adjustment effects, you'll see a bunch of these white boxes with percentages. If you see a box with a numeral value, all you have to do is right-click in that box, and you'll notice you'll have a copy box that comes up. It'll say copy blank to this, copy it to this, copy it to this. So pretty much all you have to do, well, if you're going to copy it to a selected slide, you just need to make sure that the slide is selected before you do it. So whatever slide is highlighted in blue, if you right-click, you can copy whatever effect to the selected slide. That means it'll copy 55 to this function on that slide. You can also do it to all keyframes on a selected slide. You can do it to all keyframes on all slides. You can do it to all keyframes on just this slide. So yes, you can, and feel free to play with that. You may just want to start with just one slide, basic left to right motion, and just go ahead and right-click in the boxes and just play with it and just trial and error it to see exactly what's taking effect. But yes, great question, Alexandra. Okay, video, download or just look? How long does it stay available? It will be available as long as we're a company. So we've been around for 20 years, so no, I don't see us, anything happening to us in the near future or even the long future. So you shouldn't have any problem accessing the video for years to come. You can download or just view it from the website. Once again, it's always best to download it first. primarily because if the information is running from your hard drive, it's a lot easier for your system to process. Especially with a video file, it'll be smoother and you'll be able to, the frames will refresh faster so you can actually see what's going on. Streaming from the internet, it's just harder because it first has to gather it off the internet before it can play it for you. So just take note, you may have some more performance issues running it straight from the website, but you do have the option of both. So you may just want to try to watch it first from the website and see how bad it is. If it's too laggy or whatnot, just download it first. Good question though, Alexandra. Thank you, Les. Okay, how to combine camera.wave and accompanying music if you have only one soundtrack? Good question. Well, here's the deal with the soundtrack and sound file options in the software. The reason why soundtrack is good and important is because you actually can manually offset the tracks to where you want them to play. So to give it like an effect where it's lining up exactly where the flash is happening, you'll want to use this feature. So take note. Let's say you have another soundtrack. Let's go ahead and I'll use this just so I have another track in here. Okay, so as you can see, I have like this other track, and here are my camera flashes. Okay, so think of this like your audio track that's playing throughout your whole song. You can still do what we did before. You can hover your mouse over the actual camera sound, and take a look at this. You can actually merge this into the other track. So you can actually have your music playing. I know it gets a little harder to see because if you can see this as I do, the blue when it moves into the green, it kind of turns into like this aqua green type color. So pretty much you'll have to still go along the lines that we talked about earlier. You'll need to line it up right where those camera flashes happen. So it can be done. It's just a little bit more difficult, because when you're merging tracks, it just kind of gets a little cluttered down there, and you really, you can get lost pretty easily. Another thing I would want to mention is you do have the option of actually dragging the sound effect onto the actual slide, and that will actually import it as a sound file. So as you can see, I drag and dropped it on the slide, but the only problem with this is you won't be able to adjust when it actually plays. So if you're actually needing a soundtrack to line up exactly where your thing's happening in the slide, it's best to use the soundtrack. So if you're trying to do something special though, usually you can work around it. So please, if you're having trouble, give us a ring. I'm sure we'll be able to walk you through something like that over the phone. Okay? Appreciate that question though. Okay, Delmar, when you use video instead of images in a keyframe, can you delay when that video starts? Great question. You guys, I must applaud you guys. Great questions. Usually my classes, people don't really ask any questions. But anyways, the video, think of it as just an image. The program is designed to handle your video file just as if it was as a layer. So it handles it the same way as it would an image. So if you just take note, video files are a lot larger than images. So the only issues I would see you running into would just be a size limitation, because if you have keyframes with video files, a lot of things are happening. Your processor and your RAM are going to be taxed. So Delmar, if you have a good system, a quad core, if you have a system that can handle it, feel free to use video just as you would with images with the program. And the keyframes will be able to manipulate that layer just as it would an image. The only thing, once again, the video file is going to be a lot harder for your system to handle if you're moving it around, doing a lot of crazy stuff to it. Okay? Video files are normally used as like backgrounds or just the video itself. But once again, it can be done. So please play with it and try it out. See what happens when you do it. Appreciate that question though. And to delay, I just saw you wanted to delay it. Simply to delay something from coming in later in the slide, all you have to do is drag the first keyframe to the right. So going back to just basic keyframe understanding, the 1 means when does this happen, or when does this start to happen. So if we played this right now, nothing would be on the screen but this blue background until it gets to 2 seconds in the slide. Then this image would appear here, and then it would, through this time, it would basically end up here. So it would give it a nice left-to-right motion. Another question, is it possible to lock the timing? Yes, it is. Let me show you how to do that. Okay. Well, you only really need to lock your slide times if you have like a video file or something in your slide, or if you're syncing music to your slideshow. So here's the lock slide times. If you want to do that, it's under Slide and then Slide Settings. Simply just click on that lock box. And basically this would prevent you from making any changes to this timing of the slide. And to make sure, once you've done it, there should be a little padlock at the bottom right here. So let's say I select all my slides. Oops, I'm going to hold Shift down. Let's say I select all my slides and I change it to 10. Take note that the lock prevented that slide from being affected. So basically all my other slides changed, but this one didn't. Okay? So that's a way to lock your timing. Okay, so we should use duplicate layers instead of unique layers so that we can save it later as a slide style. Let me see here. Yeah, don't get confused, Delmar. Basically, you don't have to use duplicate layers if you want. It's basically up to you. To duplicate a layer, it just means that you have something that's the way you want it, and then you're just needing that again. So you would only really need to customize a unique layer if you're going to be changing something about it. So if you can still save it as a slide style at any point. So take a look at what we've done here. I know I've made a lot of changes, so the effect that we started with is probably not what it should be. But if I wanted to make this to a slide style, I would simply go to Slide and then Slide Style. I would hit Create, and then I would name it whatever I want. For this one, I could be Spin Doctor. And my name's not Rachel, but it's Nathan. And once you hit OK, it pretty much will go ahead and create that as a style for you. So as you can see, I can then just go ahead and apply it to another slide. Actually, I need to create my other slide first. And then I can come into here, and under my slide styles, the one I just made, I forget what I called it. Spin Doctor, I think. Spin Doctor spelled wrong. That's it. That's me. So as you can see, I can apply this style. And there it is. It's all ready to go. All it requires is for me to select the images I want to use. Okay? So after you've mastered this, go ahead and save it as a style so then you can easily just apply it to your slideshow at will. Great question. The timing inside of the slide. So I'm sure you're talking about the keyframes, right? Let's take a look at that. Well, that goes back to our original thought, Alexandra, is before you start going, you want to kind of have an idea of how much timing you're going to need. Because basically, keyframing is dependent on the slide time and basically other keyframes. So if we go to Effects, Motion Effects, if we go into our keyframe editor here, let's see here. You can select the times, you can set the times, but I'm not seeing any really locking feature that's set up. And the reason that is because, once again, it's all comes down to the original slide time of the whole thing. So if that changes, any locks that you have in place, it doesn't work like that. So unfortunately, that's not something you can do, I don't think. Okay, and yeah, Delmar, for the second example, you do only need 3 images. But once again, don't feel that you have to have 3 images. These examples are just to show you how the effects can be done. I mean, if you want, you could actually have this, you could have like 18 images, like one come up, and let me get my little pen out. You could have one here, one here, one here, one here. Our example is just 3, so feel free to do whatever you like. Just understand our keyframes that we've done for each one, and you can mimic that, you can duplicate it, and you can customize it, so you can come out with any type of functionality you want. So if you think about what we did, we actually did a flip, a horizontal. You can actually do the opposite. You can actually have it come in from the bottom to the top and do like a vertical spin if you like. The only difference is instead of doing the x-axis, you would change it with the y-axis. So once again, just take this class and what we've learned today, and you can customize it accordingly. So feel free to play with it and use it to whatever means you're needing it to be. So you don't have to have 3 images. You can if you like. Now, Alexandra, the locking timing inside of a slide, really there's no lock. It's basically what you set it at. Just make sure you leave it. Just don't touch it, because once again, it's set up so you're in charge of where your keyframes are. I would recommend the keyframe editor if you're needing to line things up. But after I set the 2 to 3, if I go out of the slide and I change the slide times, the 2 to 3 will still be there, but it will be affected. So once again, there's really no locking device to make sure that stays proportionate. Okay. So just try to be careful when you're doing something really intense. Just take it step at a time, preview often, and just make sure you like it before you move on. That would be my best recommendation for something like that. Yes, so Delmar, the second example we've done today, it was 3 images, but to achieve that spinning effect, we actually had a duplicate layer of each image. So yes, if we did 3, so that would be 6 layers. So that was 2 layers of the first image, 2 layers of the second, 2 layers of the third. And once again, if you're wanting to do 10, you would need 20 layers, 2 of each image. And you're asking about the matched layers. In the example we did, the matching layers isn't going to work because our effect, basically the way it was designed is we had the x-axis kind of go to 0, and then we had the other layer start at 0, and then we had it come out, giving us that effect. Okay, now I see your question, or what you're saying. Basically, he's talking about I guess you are talking about the style that you've created. The saved slideshow will have 6 layers, but there are matched layers that are flipped. No, I'm kind of confused, Delmar. What I would recommend is I would love to help you. It's just I think you'd be better off calling us, and so we can walk you through step by step what you're doing, just so you have a better understanding of we have a better understanding of what you're wanting. Okay? Appreciate your question, though. Yeah, I understand what you're saying, Delmar, so I would definitely recommend calling us. For the effect we've done, making it a style, I actually haven't tested that personally, so it may have something to do with that. So I do agree with you. It may be adjusting something with the flipping. Give us a call. We'll be happy to look into it with you, all right? All right, great. All right, everybody. Actually, we're actually going a little bit over time now, so I'm actually going to need to cut off here just so this file is able to upload. So right now, I just want to take this last kind of moment just to thank each and every one of you. Y'all have been great. Your questions have been extraordinarily good, and it really it makes me feel good knowing that there's people out there that love the program as much as I do. And all I can say is just keep practicing. It's just like anything. The program is very powerful, and you're able to do some crazy and awesome things. It just takes a little time to to narrow it down and just build off of what you have as a base. So once again, it's been a pleasure to teach you all this, and I hope I did a good job. Please feel free to give us a call and support if for some reason you just are lost or something somewhere along the lines you just didn't understand what's going on. Give us a call, or once again, if you need to rewatch our video, it'll be up here probably same time tomorrow. So please feel free to download that. So if anybody else didn't have anything else for me right now, once again, I appreciate all of y'all's thanks, and going right back to you. I appreciate all of you guys, and I definitely would require you guys to continue your thirst of knowledge, and I hope it shows up in your shows. And keep trucking, and I'll talk to you guys later. Y'all have a great one. Take care. Thanks, Shannon. That made me laugh. All you guys have a good one. Take care.